Welcome back. This is the interpretation for Pearson's R. I have my output open from the previous video. I'm going to save this so that I have my output so I can refer to it. And I'm just going to put this, again, I'm in a Porto, so I'm going to put this on my desktop. And so I'm just going to say that this is my income unethical output and just delete my docx. So this is going to be a .spv file. Oops, and I do not want to encrypt it with password, so I would save this. So here you can see that there's a number of tables. We're going to focus on the descriptive statistics and correlations, and then we are going to talk about confidence intervals in lecture. So you can see that this is not too much information, but we need to get some specific information from this. So I'm actually going to open the Word document that I exported to in the last video and use that to show you how I would go through this process. So I opened my Word document in Google Docs. You could do this in your team folder, which is what I would recommend, so you all can just share one. Notice that this looks a little different than the output that we saw. It gets a little bit messed up. First of all, when you export it from an output to Word, it adds notes that are completely unnecessary. So I'm going to delete that. And then, and I can right click and I can just delete the table, would be the faster way to do that. But then it also kind of, it messes it up in the transport from Word to Google Doc, but it's pretty much okay. So you can see that we're going to use, we have our descriptive statistics table, we have our correlations table, and we have our confidence intervals. These are set up as tables, so they have some quirky formatting. You could always go through, you could highlight it all and format, and you could clear formatting if you wanted to, and that would clean some of it up. That would really be up to you. So I am going to go through what each of these tables is for, and I'm going to leave the original formatting because I think a lot of you will end up keeping that. So first, this is our first table. So this is our descriptive statistic table. Now remember that you can look at the guide on this and you can see the information as well. This is just an additional resource for you. So here, table one shows because we added this by going to options. We have the means and standard deviation for both variables. So here we have our mean. This is our self-reported income. You could decide to change this to just the variable name, and then this would be unethical behaviors questionnaire score. Whatever helps you to be able to tell what your information is related to. So here is this income. What we can see here, and I'm going to highlight this, make this light yellow. No, let's make that bright yellow. So here, this is saying that our mean of income is 138,918.44. And our standard deviation is 63,479.01. And I would just change this because you want to round to 2 numbers after the decimal. So you can just change it right there. We also have the number of people who responded to this, which is 1,000. And then you have your unethical behaviors questionnaire and the mean and standard deviation for that score. So I'll put that in a different color here. So this is helpful because you're going to have to report this. So you could even type it out and say income, and I would do in APA formatting, M equals 138,918.44, comma, SD equals 63,479.01, and parenthesis. And then unethical behaviors. Man, you can never type when you guys are watching, even if it's recording that you're watching. You can feel it. So I'm going to do mean again is for this one, our mean of unethical behaviors 35.23, and our standard deviation equals 8.78 because I'm going to round up here. So I'm going to change this to 8. So you want to round, again, you want to use correct rounding here. So this is something that you can then copy into your documentation, and your standard deviation and mean are going to be italicized in APA 7th edition. So now you have some descriptive information here. So now the next table, this is our actual correlation. Notice that this is the lower half right here. So you can see there's like this line drawn. This is what, this is why I selected just the lower side, because the lower diagonal, because otherwise this information would just be duplicated here. So what's happening in this example, or in this, is that here we have the Pearson's correlation for our unethical behaviors, and then with our self-reported income. So if we had a score on unethical behaviors and self-reported income here, it would be the same thing. So we only have one correlation we're looking at. So it's this right here. So that is our Pearson's R. And you can see here that our Pearson's correlation, our Pearson's R, is a 0.591. The asterisks that are there indicate that it's significant. And you can see that there's a one-tailed test right here. It says that it's one-tailed. So this is important information. I'm going to highlight this. Let's make this turquoise. So this is the correlation between our income and our self-reported, our income and our unethical behaviors questionnaire. So income and I'm going to call it UBQ, R equals 0.59. I'm going to say 0.59 because I'm rounding again to 2 after the decimal. So I could just change that in here, 0.59. You might not want to actually change it for yourself in here, just because you might want to be able to come back to it, make sure it's correct. So I don't want to teach you bad habits, but that you need to write it out that way. So our Pearson's R is 0.59. And you want to take a minute to look at that. So that means, and I can add notes here, that the relationship is positive. So as one increases, the other increases. They move in the same direction, right? I can also tell that the effect size, because this is also an effect size, is large, because the limit for a large is 0.5. And I do want to note here that there's no leading zero because you can't exceed 1. So I'm not going to put a 0 in front of my decimal. So now I need to look at my p-value. So my p-value here is equal to this less than 0.001. It's significant one-tailed. So that is telling me that my p-value is less than 0.001. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight this over here in orange. Our p-value equals, and I'm going to change equals to less than 0.001. So SPSS, once it's really small, they'll just say less than 0.001 rather than giving you a value for it. So you do not round, you leave this as 0.001, that's your exception. And then you can see that the N is here. So you would need to know the sample size. This is the only test that we're doing in this class that will not give you, it doesn't give you the degrees of freedom. So degrees of freedom equals your sample size, which is N, minus 2. So our degrees of freedom equals 998. So this is the information that we need to write out our APA style results. The next step are confidence intervals. So here, this confidence interval, the idea is that you are creating an estimate for how more probability. It's probability of how often you would get that sample result. So we use a 95% confidence interval. This is the 95% confidence interval, and it's an interval around our value. So our significance level, or I'm sorry, our R value is 0.59, right? So that's our value. The confidence interval is, let me put this here. So if you say that your lower confidence interval is 0.59, and then you have your, that's an arrow, believe it or not. And then you have your actual R equals 0.59. And then our upper confidence interval is says 1.00. So what this is saying is that based on our sample, we estimate that 95 out of 100 or 95% of samples would fall in a range from 0.59. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm misreading this. This is our lower confidence interval, 0.56. So our we would say that we have 95% of the time, or 95 out of 100 samples, we would get a Pearson's R between 0.56 and 1.00. So this is an interval around our value that we received, that we got from our calculations. So again, we're going to talk more about this in lecture, and you do not have to write about this in your paper, but it's another way that researchers share information about significance. So this is available on Canvas. And then I just want you to, again, think about, make sure you're not talking about causation, that you're very clear about where your sample came from and how that can influence your results and generalizability. But this is the end of the overview for the Pearson's R interpretation.